Hello, and welcome to part two of the National Weather Service Pittsburgh Spotter Training for spring of 2023. Again, my name is Jason Frazier, and I'll be walking through you the second part of this Basic Spotter Training program. As a reminder, if you're looking for additional online training, you can find these courses through Comet Med or the Spotter Network, and they're approved and recognized by the National Weather Service. They come to no cost to you and give you complementary information to what we learned through this Basic Spotter Training program to help you better understand how severe weather and storms come together and work, and give you a chance to test your knowledge and further develop understanding of how weather phenomena come together. Again, this is part two of our four-part video series for the Basic Spotter Training program. In this video, we'll be talking about how to prepare for and monitor forecasts in a severe weather environment. Getting started, we're going to talk about how to get prepared. And this starts by knowing and how to monitor the latest forecasts. As a citizen in the National Weather Service Pittsburgh forecast area, which encompasses eastern Ohio, western Pennsylvania, and northern West Virginia, it's good to understand where you can find resources and locations to find the latest severe weather information. The recommended website that we provide is at weather.gov/Pittsburgh. Here you can find links and all sorts of information about the latest forecasts, watches, and warnings, with the ability to insert your zip code into the weather.gov web address to get your local information, as well as additional graphics and point-and-click forecasts that you can better help aid your decision-making and understanding of what the current forecast is. You can also find our forecast through the mobile.weather.gov mobile website, or through our social media channels on Facebook and Twitter. If you search for our name at NWS Pittsburgh. We also recommend interested weather enthusiasts to potentially buy and have a NOAA weather radio so that you can hear the latest watches and warnings that get alerted on it. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. You could also find various weather forecasts through the local TV and radio stations and any other reliable apps and websites. Hello, and welcome to part two of the National Weather Service Pittsburgh Basic Spotter Training Program for the spring of 2023. Again, my name is Jason Frazier, and I'll be walking through the second part of this video training process to become a SKYWARN spotter. As a reminder, if you're looking for additional online training about severe weather and understanding basics about weather information, you can find courses online that are approved and are recognized by the National Weather Service through websites like Comet Med and Spotter Network. These courses come at no cost to you to register and provide an information tool to better understand how weather works, how severe weather comes together and storms develop, and gives you greater depth of information to understanding severe weather. You can also test your knowledge out through their end-of-module quizzes. Again, this is part two of our four-part video series on the Basic Spotter Training program. We'll be discussing how you can monitor the latest forecasts during a given severe weather event. And that involves by being prepared and understanding where you can get the latest forecast information for a severe weather event. And also understanding how different forecasts come about from weeks out to just within a couple hours. First, understand that you can get your day-to-day weather information from a variety of locations. The one that we like to provide and advertise the most is the weather.gov/Pittsburgh website that has links and images and tools to all the information that you need for folks that live within the eastern Ohio, western Pennsylvania, and northern West Virginia area. This includes the ability to type in your zip code into the web address if you add weather.gov in front of that zip code. There's also additional graphics and point-and-click forecasts that can give you more detailed information for your specific location. Also, if you're using a mobile device, we have a mobile weather website that provides information specifically for your location that's geared towards mobile apps to make it a little bit easier to navigate. You can also find us on social media websites like Facebook and Twitter by searching at NWS Pittsburgh. You can also listen to our continuous stream of radio products on our NOAA Weather Radio and find the various watches, warnings, and advisories that are issued through things like the local TV and radio stations, as well as reliable apps and websites. For things like hydrology and understanding whether areas are potentially going to have issues with rivers and flooding, there's also websites that are linked here on this page at water.weather.gov/AHIPS or AHPS2. This site provides up-to-date information on the latest current status, as well as future forecasts for select gauge locations across a lot of the main river tributaries within the Pittsburgh forecast area. Our office, the National Weather Service Pittsburgh office, works hand in hand with a dedicated team at the Ohio River Forecast Center that's located in Wilmington, Ohio, who specializes in making river forecasts for many rivers, including the Monongahela, Allegheny, Ohio, and Muskingum rivers. These forecasts provide a great tool for both the public and core partners as they make decisions on how to navigate safely through this water network. And additionally, you can find forecasts that come out through different text products, as well as social media graphics like seen here that can highlight when there's potential for river flooding. As we know, times when rivers may be reaching various stages and the impacts that come with the various river heights. So when it comes to understanding and knowing how to get weather information, what we really like to teach and let people know is that it's key to have more than one way to receive weather. Because you never know, given in a severe weather event, what technology actually might end up working. Electricity might go out, batteries might die. So it's good to have multiple ways to be able to get and know that weather information. So what's some good ones? We have a NOAA Weather Radio that they're certified NOAA Weather radios that you can purchase that has a public alert logo, and that these are automatically tuned for your location to broadcast any of the latest watches and warnings and advisories. There's a lot reliable apps that you can use and download to your phone that can push alerts to your phone. Most phones also come with emergency notification systems that automatically push things across using the wireless emergency alerts. This is especially for those high impact things like tornadoes, intense snow squalls, and high impact severe and flash flood warnings. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as well. Some other good info, but maybe they don't wake you up. They don't alert you, especially if it's late at night and you may be asleep, but severe weather can still occur. These are still good places to get the information during the day, but you can't necessarily always rely on them. TVs and local radio or newspapers, websites, some apps, applications for phones that don't have push alerts enabled. If you rely on friends or social media or groups or other outdoor warnings, sometimes these don't always work. So what is best is making sure that you have access to multiple these different resources, so that way you are best prepared to handle and respond to hazardous weather. Wireless emergency alerts. Many people have seen this when we've issued different products like flash flood warnings or tornado warnings, automatically initiate an alert onto wireless devices, and a message gets sent to your phone. So that way you can potentially shelter yourself from a impactful storm. These messages are sent to your phone when we issue something like a tornado warning, high impact flash flood warnings. This means flash flooding is likely to be problematic. Snow squall warnings that are also expected to be impactful, and severe thunderstorm warnings where we're expecting winds to be greater than 80 miles per hour or have baseball size hail or larger. Most modern cell phones are already capable and able to have these wireless emergency alerts pushed to your phone, and when you're maybe first purchasing the phone, this is enabled. You do have the ability to turn these notifications off. So we always recommend to make sure to keep those on. You can go through, basically looking through your settings, notifications, and something like emergency alerts or government alerts to make sure and ensure that these notifications are on. These messages are geo-targeted, so you're only going to get alert if you're within the warning polygon or the area that we are most concerned about with the threat of severe weather. If somebody else is experiencing a high impact flash flooding, but you're in a different location, you won't be notified, which hopefully reduces the amount of time that you maybe are prompted action when really action is not needed. The key, though, is getting this information and being prompted on when you need to take action to prevent yourself from being part of the impacted community from severe weather. So, reliable alerting apps. Unfortunately, the National Weather Service does not have an official app. We would very much, it would be fun to have some of these, but at this point, we don't have that, and that's okay, because there are a lot of great apps from well-known companies and provide good information that help to, again, push alerts or provide information quickly to your phone. So look online, look through well-known companies, and check the reviews to make sure that any sort of download app that you download or pay for is going to work exactly the way you want it to work to prepare you and alert you to severe weather. Things like making sure it has the ability to push alerts or enable notifications to get those across to your screen. Please note that most apps cannot override your do not disturb or silent mode settings. So if you have silent settings or do not disturb, those notifications still can't get through. For an iOS system, apps need to have critical alert feature, or for the Androids, they need to have enabled app to override do not disturb in the settings. So those are some ways to help out. But these are things to know and keep in mind when you're downloading any sort of weather alerting app. There is another app that we also sometimes recommend is through FEMA, and as well as the Red Cross, who are able to provide weather alerts for up to 5 locations. So some of this is based on your location, but you also, if you want to know what may be happening in your neck of the woods or where you're originally from. Myself, I'm originally from Hilliard, Ohio. So if I was wanting to know what was happening there, I could have this app set that as one of my locations and be able to be alerted anytime there's severe weather threatening there. You can also use other places to find good alerting systems like ready.pa.gov or other apps through your Google Play or Apple stores. So staying informed. What a great way to think about staying informed when it comes to severe weather is that there's going to be a series of products that are kind of, from a timeline perspective, get more and more intense the closer you get to an event. So we start with some products that are issued both at a local level from a National Weather Service Pittsburgh office, or as well as the national level with our National Storm Prediction Center, or SPC. When we're about 1 to 3 or more days out, these entities, the SPC or Storm Prediction Center and the National Weather Service Pittsburgh local office, will issue things called outlooks, a convective outlook or a hazardous weather outlook. These are basically the first signs that, hey, there's potential that we could be experiencing severe weather on a given day. What sort of actions should we take? It just simply means, hey, stay tuned. Understand that there's a non-zero threat for severe weather, and now is the time to think about how severe weather may impact you and start thinking about ways that you can potentially mitigate those impacts if severe weather does develop on a given highlighted day. As you get closer to a severe weather event actually occurring, say the day of, and you're hours out from it starting, the National Weather Service Pittsburgh office, in conjunction and coordination with Storm Prediction Center, will issue a watch. Maybe it's a tornado watch, a severe thunderstorm watch, or a flood watch. What this means is the probability of severe weather occurring has increased, and the threat is maybe mere hours away from occurring. So now, as an action, we need to start taking or making those plans and starting to become more prepared. Plan for what you will do if severe weather actually occurs, and maybe alter some of your plans if you're able to avoid putting yourself at more risk than you need to be on a given day or given time frame. As you get closer to actual severe weather occurring, this is when the National Weather Service Pittsburgh or other local office will start to issue warnings, things like severe thunderstorm warnings, tornado warnings, flash flood warnings. This product means it's time to act now. you need to take shelter. You need to protect yourself because that severe weather threat, whether it's tornadoes, hail, wind, flooding, is imminent. It could be or is in the process of happening right now. So you need to take the action now to prevent yourself from being impacted by that severe weather. We'll talk about the different ways to mitigate some of those impacts. So again, as you can see, it's a multi-day and multi-step process that we kind of funnel down from being prepared or just kind of being on lookout to eventually taking action. For the Storm Prediction Center's severe weather outlooks, they use a scale system to highlight the potential threat for severe weather. This comes in the form of different outlook categories. They are a general thunder threat, which means severe storms are not expected, but we could still see thunderstorms, meaning storms that have lightning, and occasionally have storms that have gustier winds and maybe some small hail. Category 1 is called a marginal. It means that severe thunderstorms will be capable of producing hail, damaging winds, or possibly tornadoes, but the probabilities are still on the lower side, and it may be more isolated or less intense in nature. The National Weather Service Pittsburgh office will also help to coordinate and help to define these different flight categories to help you understand the overall scope of the threat. As you continue to work higher through the categories, from the slight, enhanced, moderate to high, the threat and probability of severe storms occurring increases. That means as you get to enhanced, it becomes more likely that several storms will produce very large hail, damaging winds, or tornadoes. By the time you get to category 5 of high, a severe storm outbreak, meaning many storms that are severe is likely. There are maybe many tornadoes, potentially higher intensity tornadoes are possible, large hail, damaging winds. So now is the time to think with these different flight or outlook categories. The higher in they are, the more likely severe weather is to occur, and the more action maybe you need to take in those planning steps as where you're maybe multiple or only a day out. Remember, severe storms don't care which category you're in. We've had many a time where we've had slight risks or even enhanced risks that maybe because environments change or not all the ingredients come together for a severe thunderstorm weren't as impactful as some other days where it was uncertain whether all these ingredients come together on maybe a marginal day, and we end up having a tornado outbreak. So don't necessarily get too focused in on what the category is in assessing threat. Severe weather can always happen. You just got to always be prepared. It means to have a plan and always be ready for action. One key thing we also want to note is that thunderstorms categories imply lightning and the potential for flooding. So anytime there's any sort of these categories that are displayed for the National Weather Service Pittsburgh area, that means there's always potential for lightning. Lightning's not by itself a definition of severe weather, and we'll get to that in one of our videos. There also is potential for flooding, which again, we'll talk about more in another video. Also to be aware, the National Weather Service also defines a severe thunderstorm as being a storm that has wind gusts of at least 58 miles per hour and hail of at least 1 inch in diameter or having a tornado. Also note that each of these categories are tied to probabilities. Again, the higher the category, the higher probability of a severe weather event occurring within 25 miles of your location. Here's an example of how that looks maybe from previous events where you have kind of a range of rings highlighting the different threat areas. So when we're about 1 to 3 days out, the Storm Prediction Center will start to highlight and create these different categories. You can see the different colors to help show where there's maybe more uncertainty and more certainty for the threat of severe weather. And in this case, the lower Ohio River Valley to the Tennessee River Valley had a moderate risk for severe weather. The further you expand out from that area, the more uncertainty or the less likely it was to have severe weather, but a non-0% chance. When we're talking about outlooks that are maybe 4 to 8 days out, there becomes less uncertainty because the variability and potential weather outcomes is far greater during this point. So outlooks will tend to more look about probability of actually severe weather occurring, 15% or 30%. If outlooks or areas are highlighted for this, it's likely that in the coming days, as you get to the 1 to 3 days, one of these outlook categories, marginal, slight, enhanced, will be used for that highlighted area. If you're looking for any of this information, you can always go to spc.noaa.gov or spc.noaa.gov to learn more and to see the various outlooks that are produced by the Storm Prediction Center. Convective outlooks for the city of Pittsburgh, after the SPC made change to the risk categories in 2014, here are some statistics for the Pittsburgh area. From 2014 to 2022, we've been within 205 marginal risk, 99 slight risk, 13 enhanced risk, and 0 moderate risk. So that tells you right there that when we have days that maybe are in enhanced or moderate risk, those are days to take very seriously, because it's very rare or rarer for us to have a day where enough ingredients come together to create a higher risk for severe weather. Based on these statistics and just using a 2016 to 2022 average, that means in a given year, we can expect Pittsburgh to have about 25 days with a marginal risk, about 12 days with a slight risk, and about 2 days with enhanced risk. So what are some other ways to check for upcoming severe weather? One area that you can always look at is our area forecast discussions. This is maybe a lesser known product that we issue. You can find it on our main webpage. You can also find them at weather.gov/pbz/discussions. But this is basically taking our forecast, and maybe when you go to point and click and seeing the outlook, it's taking that forecast but providing into words and explanations of why it's happening in areas of uncertainty and the scope of maybe a severe weather event. It puts into words, into context, what we're seeing and what we're anticipating when it comes to severe weather, and provides a great source to maybe learn some of that basic knowledge and basic understanding of what we're thinking to give you more background on any sort of outlooked event. You can also check out our social media accounts. We try to be very active through those to highlight when events are coming in the multiple days or in multiple hours where severe weather. Highlight in this scenario with this graphic here where we expect development to occur more soon. So those areas can be more on alert maybe than other areas. All this information is vital tools that you can utilize to help better plan for and anticipate severe weather. When we get to the watch stage, remember this is just hours ahead of the initiation or onset of severe weather. There are kind of 3 different watches to be aware of: a severe thunderstorm watch, tornado watch, and flash flood or flood watch. A severe thunderstorm watch is basically focusing on the threat for damaging winds or large hail. A tornado watch is focused on the potential for tornadoes along with threat of damaging winds and large hail, while flash flood or flood watch is talking about heavy rains that could lead to water flowing over roadways or rapid rises in waters. What does a watch mean? Well, we've kind of talked about this before, and we'll use this graphic a little bit later, but watch means the ingredients are in place. For severe weather to occur, it takes a lot of different ingredients in the environment, things like temperature, things like wind speeds and directions, to allow for severe weather to occur. With a watch being issued, those ingredients are in place to potentially allow for severe weather. Doesn't mean it's actually occurring necessarily yet, but the potential is increasing. These are usually issued about multiple hours in advance and are covering a fairly large area, maybe 15 to 30 different county areas. So what action should we take if we see a National Weather Service watch? That means we need to start to be ready, be prepared to act. You don't need to act, don't need to start going inside, you don't need to go into shelters or anything like that. But now is the time to pay more attention to the latest forecast, the latest warnings and advisories that might be issued, following your trusted weather sources, so that way you are prepared to act. National Weather Service warnings that may be issued during a hazardous weather event include a severe thunderstorm warning, a tornado warning, and a flash flood warning. The criteria that we use for defining these 3 warnings are listed here: 58 mile per hour wind or greater, hail 1 inch in diameter or greater, indication of rotation or confirmed tornado, 6 inches of water water flowing over a road, or rapid rises that threaten life and property. So when we issue one of these different severe weather warnings, that means the severe weather is already happening or is imminent in happening. We're talking minutes, 15, 20, 30 minutes away from occurring and happening in your area. These are usually issued for a smaller area, not a large 15 to 30 county size that the watch is, but a much more concentrated, focused area to highlight those who are truly at threat to be impacted by the severe weather. With a warning, the action means to act now. You need to take shelter to protect yourself from this potentially hazardous weather event. Here's an example of that. Based on its size, this was just a tornado warning that was issued back in April 8th of 2020. And there was a potential based on radar indication that a tornado was possible to occur out of a storm that was moving through areas like Tarentum, Natrona Heights, and New Kensington. If you were in this warning box area, the actions we would say is to now take cover, find shelter in those lower level locations to protect yourself from any sort of potential tornado. One additional product that we issue that don't get highlighted as much, but it still can note potentially impactful weather, are called special weather statements. And these statements now actually appear in this graphic form on our Twitter page. So again, it's great to follow us on Twitter because you can get some of this additional information. Special weather statements are basically sub-warning criteria. That means storms are still potentially strong and could create impacts, but they're not going to lead to the level of damage that a severe thunderstorm or tornado could. So the general criteria that we use for special weather statements is for wind gusts that are 40 to 58 miles per hour, hail that has penny to nickel size, or frequent lightning. Even with a frequent lightning, many times a special weather statement isn't issued. The idea with these is that, hey, now's the time to understand there could still be impacts and to kind of watch the storm. There could still be potential that the storm strengthens and that would lead to an actual severe thunderstorm warning or even a tornado warning if it continues to strengthen over time. Now, taking a step back, and when we talk about convection, how else can we be prepared for severe weather? Well, one great way that we can be prepared for is understanding how frequently and when it can actually happen. And we can do this through something like climatology, where we track when and where and what time of season different severe weather occurs. Located here, we're talking about different climatology impacts for tornadoes. All this information you can find on our weather.gov/Pittsburgh website with a little button there that you can see that says severe weather climatology. This shows that for our area, you can see breakdowns on the frequency of tornadoes by month, by hour, or even by a county location. One of the key things to note is that while there are definitely peaks and most likely periods, a lot of times associated with the summer, say the May through August period, or different times of day, say 1 p.m. to 9 p.m., that doesn't mean that severe weather can't even occur some of these other times. We have had tornadoes that have occurred in January or in December. We have had tornadoes that have occurred at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning. So this is why we always need to be prepared and know that threat that could happen at any time as long as all the ingredients come together. As a review, we want to make sure that people really take home, especially as spotters, our firsthand trainees with the understanding of the Weather Service, the difference between a watch versus a warning. And who doesn't love a little cupcake? I know my tummy's growling right now. So kind of remember a watch being something like having all your ingredients there, your butter, your flour, salt, eggs, vanilla, I'm not a baker, so I don't know the rest of it there, but all that's there. All the ingredients are in place. So cupcakes or severe weather could happen soon. Is that cupcake baked yet? No, it's not a threat yet. You're not going to eat any of that on its own, but it's all there. And if it comes together just right, then we could have a warning. That is equivalent to a watch. The warning is that we put all these ingredients together and it worked. It makes a yummy cupcake. Unfortunately, it's not yummy when it does all come together. That means severe weather is now imminent and a warning is issued. That means you need to take action now. Some other thing to really remember throughout this process is that when we talk about taking action, one key thing is with tornadoes of where to and where not to go. When a tornado's warning is issued and you need to take shelter, a couple things you want to make sure to do is bring your phone or bring your safety or emergency kit so that you have access to that in case you are impacted. To have shoes on, because if a tornado does impact your location, it can be difficult to walk or move around that area after a tornado impacts. And to cover your head. Why are we covering our head or always flying? It's not because of the wind speeds of the tornado itself. It's because all the debris that the tornado eventually picks up in the air is flying around. We want to protect our head from getting hit by any of those objects. So where should we go? The ideal place is lower level locations, optimally underground. These locations are the most safe from all those objects flying from the ground, from the impacts of the wind, because the tornado doesn't go underground. So if you're able to quickly move to your basement, bring your emergency supply kit, those are great places. Unfortunately, not everybody has access or can quickly get to maybe a lower level or underground location. So what's the next best plan? If you don't have a basement, move to the most interior room that has no windows. What this does is it creates as many barriers as possible between you and that tornado and all the debris that's flying around. And by not having that window, you also create less things that can fly around, as the wind can further again destroy things in a room if it breaks and shatters. So finding that most interior room with no windows will then be the next best place to go if you don't have an underground location. You don't want to go to top floor rooms because those are the first to typically to be destroyed. You don't want to go to exterior rooms or rooms with tornado because they do not protect you. And no place outside is safe from a tornado. We've had the question asked before. I've done school talks, I've talked to little kids, and they've asked me this question. Well, if we are outside and we can't get inside, where do you go? It's kind of similar to the basement. If this is where you're located at and you have no other options, you don't have any safe place to go, the best place if you are outside is to find a ditch or low-lying area to try to keep yourself as low to the ground as possible, covering as much of your body as possible. The same idea that a basement does. Again, thank you for your time here today. This concludes our second video of our 4-part video series. You can check out the other 3 videos in the links below. Have a great day.